Welcome, everybody. Today we are covering webinar mastery. You're going to learn how to skyrocket your course and info product sales via a webinar. And this is presented by Teachable. And something that I do, if you guys are new to my webinars, something that I always do is we do our commitments. So you're going to learn today that webinars are about creating value. And some people put on webinars that are just a marketing and sales gimmick. This is not that. This is 90 minutes of real work. You're going to learn a lot today. You're going to want to take notes. You're going to want to pay attention. For the first time ever, I'm making the slides available with all the notes afterwards. So be present. You're going to be able to get the slides afterwards and kind of like really go deep. So I want you to think about, what are you going to make the most out of these 90 minutes? How are you going to make the most out of these 90 minutes? Are you going to put away your phone? Are you going to shut out of Slack? I've got my tea here. Are you guys going to go get a tea or a coffee so that you can stay alert, stay warm? Are you going to make sure you don't check your email? Are you going to eat a snack, put your pets away, put your kids away? What are you going to do so that you can actually pay attention for this 90 minutes? Because this is a training that I would otherwise be charging at least $1,000 for. But we're able to do it for free today because I'm sponsored by Teachable, and Teachable is making this happen. So shout out to Teachable, first of all, for making this happen. And secondly, make the most out of it. I'm never going to do this again. This is a one and done webinar, most likely. So I'm never going to teach this again. So what are you going to do to make the most out of the next 90 minutes? So drop your commitments in the chat, type your name and date to solidify your commitment to yourself today. So what are you going to do to make the most out of the next 90 minutes? This is a full 90-minute session. I hope you guys can stay because there's going to be value till the very end. So like I mentioned, today's class is worth a lot. This is something I would typically charge for as a course creator and teacher. It's made possible by Teachable. So Teachable is the best platform for content creators to start and grow an online business authentically. They've got more product options to create and sell than any other platform online. They allow you to sell digital downloads, coaching services, memberships, communities, courses. You can get selling fast with easy-to-use content and website builders. They have also got a lot of AI tools to make it really easy for you. You can stack your offer with bundles and upsells. We're going to learn all about stacking our offer later today. And they've got a 0% transaction fee on the Pro plan. So I made the switch to Teachable, and one of the main reasons was because they don't charge a fee, right? So I used to get charged a percentage for every course that I sold, and they don't do that, which is a great advantage. So you can be a part of the 100,000 creators who are already using Teachable to turn their expertise into a thriving business of online learning products. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, if you guys just joined, because a lot of people joined a little bit late, this is a free webinar made possible by Teachable. And we're going to make the PDF copy of this presentation, which is jam-packed with information and additional notes in the slides. We're going to make that available for anybody who actually signs up to Teachable, the Pro plan, today on the call. So if you make the choice to sign up to the Pro plan, which is no risk, you can cancel within the first 30 days and get your money back. So there's no risk to this. I never do any sort of trial that has risk or a charge associated with it. So if you sign up to the Pro plan today and you take a screenshot and send that to Kate, you can send it in the chat. You can email it. Kate can drop her email here. You'll get the PDF download of this presentation with all the notes. And we're even giving an extra gift of a tech SOP for your webinar setup as well. Okay. So to get ready for the demo, and this is just like the precursor of the actual training. So if you guys want to just get this out of the way so we don't have to stop when I'm actually presenting content, just get ready for the demo later on today. Go to teachable.com/welcome/Hala. If you select the Pro plan, sign up for a new account, you arrive at the free account demo, upgrade to the 30-day risk-free Pro plan, and you'll receive your gift. Okay, we are going to get started here. And I'm so excited. So first of all, I want you guys to know that this presentation is very meta. This is a webinar on webinars. So everything that I do from here on out is a lesson, even if you don't realize it's a lesson. So pay attention to everything, okay? Pay attention to everything. And we're going to connect the dots later on as to what I did, for example, in this introduction. So everything in this webinar is meant to teach you every single thing that I do, okay? Even what I just did, signing up to the demo before we get started, even the commitments that I just did, all of this is a lesson for you guys to think about and pay attention to, okay? So a little bit about me before we get started. My name is Hala Taha. For those of you guys who are not familiar with me, I host a #1 podcast. It's an entrepreneurship podcast, frequently in the top 10 on Apple. It's a top 10 business podcast. I have over 20 million downloads. I'm the founder of Yap Media. It's an award-winning podcast production and social media agency. We cater to authors, podcasters, influencers, and CEOs. I'm also the founder and CEO of the Yap Media Podcast Network, where I grow and monetize other podcasts. And I have a large LinkedIn following and over 1 million subscribers and followers across all of my platforms. So that's a little bit about me. And I want to talk to you about launching my first course. So I launched my first course a little bit over a year ago. At the time, I was a really large influencer on LinkedIn, and I had never sold anything before. I just provided value to my audience with free content, promoting my podcast, talking about LinkedIn advice, marketing advice. And I was just a content creator that was just trying to become an influencer in my space. And so I had my agency and I was doing all these like really high ticket clients, but I was primarily selling to the guests that came on my podcast. I never really sold to my general audience. I just provided value for a long time. I used to go on LinkedIn Live and Clubhouse, and I would do all these Q&As, and I would just always give people free advice. And I started to pay attention to the demand that people were asking me about. People would be like, can you please do a course? Can you please do a course on LinkedIn? I really want to learn more from you. Can you write all your learnings down in one place? I'll pay you for this. Can you do this for me? And so people would always ask me. And so I finally decided when I had a bit of time that I was going to put out a LinkedIn course. I decided that I was starting my network and that I didn't want to scale my agency so large because it's very talent heavy, and that I wanted to scale my LinkedIn knowledge through a course instead. So I decided to develop a 2-day masterclass and then sell my expertise to my audience. And so I would say at the time I had a large LinkedIn following. So I probably had like 200,000 at least followers when I launched my course a year and a half ago on LinkedIn. And so when I first launched my course, I decided I was going to start with a pilot because I never did this before. And I wanted to make sure it was valuable, that people liked it. I wanted to get feedback on it. I wanted to test my price. And so I did a pilot launch where I charged half of what I wanted to eventually charge. My course was eventually like $2,000. And so I charged around $700 for this pilot. The class filled up right away. I did barely any promotions. I just talked about it a bit on my feed. People signed up right from my feed. I did a little bit of DMing to kind of get people to sign up, but it was so easy to get signups. Like it kind of blew my mind, right? So in my pilot launch alone, I made $35,000 in my first launch. Then I decided, all right, I'm going to do this for real. I'm going to charge the amount that I wanted, about $2,000. I gave some promos, usually about 30% off. Even at some points, I would do like 50% off for like one day. And I would do these promos, but generally everyone paid around $1,500 to $2,000 for the course. And my second launch also got a ton of signups, very easy, just through feed posts, a little bit of DMing, $55,000 for my second launch. And then I made $60,000 in my third launch. And again, just so easy. It was very easy to convert people. But by my fourth and fifth launches, suddenly the signups started to tank. And I was getting half as many signups that I was used to. And people weren't really converting easy anymore. And I realized that I really just exhausted all my leads from social media. I had, for a long time, just provided value on Clubhouse, on LinkedIn Live, just on my feed. And I had a lot of people who were already so bought into me and ready to shell out a lot of money. And it didn't take a lot of effort because I had already built that trust over a long period of time. But then I was getting new followers and they weren't ready to convert and they needed something else. And I thought the answer was paid ads. And so we hired this consultant that did paid ads for us. And it was a lot of effort on my part. I had to do like all these videos. We spent $30,000 on it. We had like to write out all these emails. And it was a total failure. We literally got 0 signups from it. And I was just like, what am I going to do? I feel like I should just, not do this course anymore. It's not really working. And I really learned the hard way that cold leads from paid ads and my social media profiles needed more exposure to build trust in me before they were ready to make such a big investment. Had it been like a $30 course, maybe it would have been a different story. But, it's a $2,000 course. The people have to trust you before they're going to shell out that kind of money. So I started to evaluate the problem and brainstorm my next steps. I needed a way to condense the sales cycle and get people to trust me fast. I needed a way to share my knowledge and get people curious to learn more. I needed to create goodwill and encourage reciprocity for my high ticket offering. And I definitely didn't have time to sell and handle objections one-on-one on the program. Like I wasn't about to take 500 discovery calls to make the sales myself. And I didn't have the bandwidth for my team to do that either. We're running a whole company. This was just a side project. I didn't want to waste more money on paid ads or a new idea. I was like not willing. I didn't have any more budget to kind of experiment with any other solutions. And I didn't want to be super salesy either. Even the paid ads felt really inauthentic. I wanted to maintain my authenticity with my audience, which I was known for just always giving a lot of free value and giving people more than what they pay for, right? And so I also wanted a way to maintain my authenticity with my audience as this person that's of service and always is giving value. And then it hit me. The answer is webinars. Webinars changed everything for me. So Jason Fladline is the first person that introduced me to webinars. I did a 2-part series with him and I spent over 3 hours talking to him. And he's known as the webinar king. And we're going to learn a lot about his teachings throughout this webinar. And he says most advertisements don't have the luxury of giving value and then trying to sell you on why you should buy from them. In fact, most advertisements are nothing more than annoying interruptions. The webinar is an advertisement, but it's one that has intrinsic value. So basically what he's saying is that, again, I was talking about paid ads before. Paid ads are disruptive. You didn't ask for them. You didn't want them. A webinar actually has information that you signed up for. You willingly signed up. You willingly came and attended. And it has value because you're learning from a credible expert the entire time. So it's just an advertisement that also has value. So it's just so much more impactful. So I went on this journey to become a webinar master over the last year. And I learned from top folks who conduct webinars and who are marketing and sales experts like Jason Fladline, Russell Brunson, Alex Hormozi. I also leveraged my deep knowledge of human behavior and persuasion. I've interviewed every single major human behavior expert in the world, sometimes 3, 4, 5 times. So Robert Cialdini, Chris Voss, Robert Greene, these are all people that I've sat down with for hours and hours and picked their brains and had to study their books and their works. And so I took everything that I knew from all the interviews that I've done and all the studying that I've done over the last 6 years for my podcast, plus specifically asking people like Alex and Jason and Russell about their webinar approach to come up with my own webinar framework. And then I just got to practicing, right? I put in the reps. I did at least 3 webinars a month for a year. And I just kept iterating and tweaking and iterating and tweaking until I became a webinar master myself. And people would come to my webinars. And if you're in the chat and you come to my webinars all the time, let us know in the chat right now. People come to my webinars over and over and over again. Even the same webinar that they've already been to, they'll attend again. And many people say that it's the best webinars that they've ever been to. And now, for example, today, I even get sponsored by brands to conduct webinars on their behalf. So I'm sponsored by Teachable and Shopify and BetterHelp and all these different brands to actually conduct webinars on their behalf. So I have truly become a webinar master, and there's been a lot of unexpected benefits. So I thought my webinars would just help me make more sales, but it did so much more than that. First of all, faster sales cycle. So it used to take me months to convert people to actually want to pay for my high ticket course. Now, when it would take, months or weeks to convert people, it just takes 2 hours to get people warm enough to buy a high ticket offer with me. Number 2 was totally unexpected, growing my email list. This has been the number one way that I've grown my email list, because when people register for a webinar on Zoom, they have to insert their email. Now, I had over 1,000 people sign up for this webinar. Okay, over 1,000 people registered, and I got 1,000 emails from this webinar alone. Okay, now I can retarget these people after the webinar. And a lot of folks did not attend this webinar, so I might have another webinar for anybody who missed it and get those people to hop on the webinar. Because I have their email, I'm able to do that. So email is a very valuable asset. You get 35x your ROI on email. There's no other channel like it. So I grew my email list, and I continue to grow my email list really fast from webinars. Number 3 is also an unexpected benefit, and that's sticky super fans. I've got a lot of folks who never convert. They never buy anything, but they always show up and they always support. And they tell their friends about the webinars, and they tell their friends about my podcast, and they always are engaging on social media. And why? Because of the law of reciprocity. I've helped them so much with all these free trainings, and they feel like they want to give back to me. And so I create all these super fans because I'm giving so much value, and they want to support me in return. The 4th one is something that's almost invaluable, which is webinars have actually made me a better communicator, a better storyteller, a better salesperson. And those 3 things have actually helped me generate millions of dollars outside of just selling my courses. So when I go pitch brands for sponsorships from my podcasters, I'm better at doing that. When I go pitch agency clients for, $10,000 plus agency services every month, I'm better at doing that and have higher conversion rates because of the skills that I've learned on webinars. So in summary, webinars help me shorten my sales cycle to go from cold to sold. Webinars have helped me generate millions in sales and improve lives at the same time. Webinars help me solidify my position as a top expert in my niche, specifically as a LinkedIn teacher, because I created so many super fans. And now I want to teach you how to do the same thing in this webinar. So I want to ask you guys, I know I've been doing a lot of talking. Do you have a skill that you can monetize with a course? Let us know in the chat. Are you ready to become a webinar master yourself? Okay, so let's talk about who this webinar is for. So this webinar is for somebody who has an expertise that you want to turn into a course soon, or you've already built a powerful product or course and you want to maximize your sales. So this works for if you already have a course or you don't have a course yet. And even if you don't have a course or you never want to have a course, this webinar is super relevant for you. For most businesses, simply having even a half-ass webinar, I'm going to teach you how to have an amazing webinar. Even having a half-baked webinar will put you leagues above your competition who don't have webinars at all. Russell Brunson has this quote, if you do a webinar every single week, eventually you'll never have to worry about money again. And again, it's not just from doing the webinars, it's from becoming a better storyteller, becoming a better marketer and salesperson, because you've got all your ideas down. You understand how to persuade, you understand the psychology of sales and all the things that we're going to learn about today. Okay? So my promise to you, in the next 90 minutes, you'll get my exclusive blueprint for scaling your product to 5-figure monthly sales and beyond without major investment, complicated tech, or high pressure selling, even if you're new to webinars or don't have a big following. So again, my promise to you, in just 90 minutes, you're going to get my exclusive blueprint for selling your course or your product to 5-figure, 6-figure monthly sales and beyond without major investment. In fact, it's pretty much free. No complicated tech. I'm on my laptop. I don't even have a camera on. I've got a ring light and a laptop right now. No high pressure selling, even if you've never done webinars before or you don't have a big following. Okay? So if I make good on this promise, I want to ask you guys, will you be open to hearing how Teachable can pour gasoline on the strategies that I teach you? If I give you, we've got about 60 minutes left or more. I'm going to stay on as long as I have to help you guys. If I provide value for 60 minutes, that's going to make you 5-figure monthly sales, 6-figure monthly sales from the teachings that I give you. Are you open to hearing how Teachable can pour gasoline on the strategies that I teach you? Pour it on us, Bill says. Okay, and if I save you money and time by giving you the blueprint to create effective webinars for free, will you consider getting started on your dreams and upgrading to a pro paid plan on Teachable for a free, no-risk 30-day trial? You can cancel within 30 days and get a refund if you are not happy. Okay, so if I save you money and time, I gave you the blueprint for free, will you consider getting started on your dreams, creating a course, upgrading to the pro plan so you can get all the features on Teachable for a free, no-risk trial? Will you invest in yourself, basically? There we go. Pauline already did. And by the way, Pauline, you get a free gift for doing that. You get all the slides, all the notes, the tech SOP. You get all the goods from today's webinar. Kate, if you can help anybody who's having trouble, I'd appreciate that. All right, so you guys already told me that sounds fair, so we can skip this part. And now I want to have you guys rate yourself. I want to know, what level are we at right now? Red, you've never done a webinar. Yellow, you've done a few webinars, but not serious part of your business. Green, you're a webinar pro. All right, we got a lot of yellow, so everybody feels like they're medium, which is a good place to be. And if you guys feel that way, get engaged in the chat. When you see me doing something sneaky that you feel like, oh, I know what she's doing right now, let us know what you think I'm doing for all those that are yellow and green. Well, I'm excited for everybody who's red because you're going to learn so much, and yellow and greens, I know you're going to learn a lot. So today we're going to be covering the psychology of introductions. We're going to be covering education without overwhelm, the 3-step transition, stacking your offer, and driving attendance. Okay? So here's the webinar roadmap. It starts with an introduction, content, transition, close. Webinar leads are like your fuel. To make all of this happen, you need people to actually attend your webinar. So the last section of today's course is about driving your webinar leads. Okay, so it's introduction, content, transition, close, and webinar leads. Those are the 5 sections of today's presentation. So let's talk about the psychology of introductions. What are your goals on your introductions? Number 1 is to establish your authority. Number 2 is to shift audience identity with commitments. Number 3 is to deal with common objections in advance. Number 4 is to create hope for the future and a desire for status. Number 5 is to create mystery and intrigue on what's next. So you want to create mystery and intrigue on your offer specifically. What are you going to teach to get people to stay on your webinar? Okay. How you do this is with something called your hero story and your big promise. And like I said, this is a meta presentation. This is a webinar on webinars. So I already gave you my hero story and our big promise, and we're going to break that down now. We're going to break down what I just did in the introduction. Okay. So Russell Brunson is a webinar guru. He's one of the biggest, most accomplished marketers in the world. He's the creator of ClickFunnels. And he understands the psychology of sales like no other person on this planet. In fact, all the big entrepreneurs now that you hear of, like Alex Hormozi and things like that, they all learned from Russell. And so Russell's in my podcast network. He's one of my mentors. He's taught me a lot, and he taught me about a hero story. And so there's 6 key elements to a hero story. The relatable start. So how can you mirror your audience's starting point? Number 2 is struggles and setbacks. So what challenges or mistakes or your frustrations did you have? Your aha moment. So what was your pivotal discovery or realization in your story? Explaining the solution. So your new method that you used to overcome the obstacle that you had. Then you go into your proof of success. So what evidence do you have of your success? Do people think you're a big deal in your field? What awards do you have? How do you attach yourself to a celebrity, for example, to showcase your proof of success? And then lastly, service to others. So you frame your mission to help others replicate your success. Again, you want to be a value of service. The hero story is also known as an epiphany bridge story. Okay, so let's break down how I did this earlier in this presentation. So a relatable start. I never sold a course before, but I was building following online. I think a lot of you guys in the chat right now can relate to that, right? Number 2, my sales went flat. My paid ads test was a failure. I'm sure a lot of you guys also can relate to that, having flat sales, trying something new that didn't really work. My aha moment was realizing that I needed to warm up my cold leads, that these leads were too cold. They needed something else. Webinars was my aha moment. The solution was coming up with my own webinar framework by learning from the best in the business, doing what I thought was really good from everybody else's strategies and creating my own. And then I practiced. My proof of success was my sales skyrocketed. I became known as a webinar princess or queen. Like everybody loves my webinars. I get paid to do webinars from sponsors. Like that's the ultimate validation. And then lastly, I'm going to teach you guys how to do the same thing, right? So I flipped it around. It's not about me. It's now about helping you guys do what I did, right? So all that I did in the beginning was actually a hero story. And then I gave you my big promise, right? In the next 90 minutes, you'll get my exclusive blueprint for scaling your product to 5 or 6 figure monthly sales without major investment, complicated tech, or high pressure selling, even if you're new to webinars or don't have a big following. Okay, so what does a big promise do? It triggers emotional buying by speaking directly to the audience's deepest desires, needs, and fears. So when you're thinking about creating a big promise, and this is something that you guys should do immediately after this webinar, it's like, what is my big promise? And this is something that you can use everywhere, right? Be specific and measurable by including a revenue target, timeline, or goal, right? So in just 90 minutes, I'll get you to 5-figure sales. Emphasize ease and simplicity. There's no complicated tech. There's no high pressure selling. There's no major investment, even if you're new, even if you don't have a big following. Show a unique approach. My exclusive blueprint for scaling your product. Address common doubts and objections, right? People think, well, I don't have a following. I've never done this before, right? So these are the doubts and objections that people might say when they're thinking about starting a webinar. Then you want to focus on the end benefits, not the process. I don't say you're going to have to sit here, take notes, download the PDF, sign up to the demo. I'm not giving you any of that. That's work that's going to scare you away. I'm talking about the end outcome. And then show implied speed. So in just 90 minutes, right? So those are some really good elements to have in your big promise and things to consider. So again, we're going to give you the slides after the call. And I'll go over this quickly, but again, you're going to be able to read through this in detail if you sign up for the pro plan. So common objections. During your introduction, throughout your entire webinar, you just want to weave in objection handling. You don't want objection handling to be like one section at the end of your webinar. You want to just address it, especially upfront. So in your big promise, throughout your hero story. So there's lots of common objections, universal objections. People believe that they can't do it, right? They failed every time before. People believe they don't have the ability, that it's too hard for them to learn. People have problems with trust. This is too good to be true. Like, I can't do 5-figure sales. Maybe she can, but this is just too good to be true. A lot of people have fear, the fear of failure, conflict. They feel like it's betraying who they are to make a change, confusion. They don't have the solution. They don't have the framework. Timing, is this the not the right time? Am I too old? Is this too late? Okay, so these are some common objections that people have that you want to address in your big promise and throughout your introduction. All right, so we just went over some steps. Do you guys see yourself putting these strategies in place? So another quote from Jason Fladline. He says, purchases occur emotionally and emotions are felt in the moment. So something that I've been doing throughout this webinar today is the yes ladder technique. So essentially what I'm doing throughout this whole webinar is I've been guiding you guys through a series of small yeses. If I can get you guys in the routine of saying yes, you're going to say yes when I ask you to sign up to the demo. You're going to say yes when I ask you to go to upgrade to the pro plan. And if I was selling something, which I'm not today, you would say yes to buy my course, right? So I want to get you to start saying yes, 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 get in the momentum of saying yes. This is also called yes momentum, yes ladder technique. Okay, so you want to get people to get in the mindset of yes. The other thing that we're doing in the introduction is we actually need to create a new identity for people. So anybody who's hopping on this webinar is doing so because they feel that something is a little bit broken when it comes to their own webinar strategy, when it comes to their own sales strategy. They're showing up here because they feel like there's a gap. If they were webinar masters that's already making 5-6 figures in their webinars, they probably wouldn't show up today. So it's your job to give them a stronger identity so that they can get the help they need. So your job is to meet people where they are in their problems, in their struggles, and then you want to sell them hope with your solution. And if these folks saw themselves confidently moving forward and easily putting your solutions in place, they would be better off. This is not manipulation. This is service, right? You're selling something that's valuable, that you feel like is going to improve people's lives, the people who need it. So your job in the webinar is to continue to nudge and nudge and nudge people from their current identity to a better one. And you do this with commitments. Remember when I just said, can you see yourself putting these strategies in place? That was yes ladder technique. That was getting you guys to start committing to changing. Okay? So we're going to learn.
Let's dig on that a little bit. It's really important for people to understand that there's hope on that a little bit. It's really important for people to understand that there's hope for the future. Why?
Here's the reality. Almost anything you sell to almost anybody, they're trying to escape pain. Their life is miserable. Nobody goes to a therapist and says, hey, listen, I'm doing really good. I want to go great. Like, hook it up, right? They go to a therapist because they're depressed. They can't even get out of bed in the morning and brush their teeth. It's gotten that bad. They're doing it out of desperation. So almost everybody who's spending serious money is doing so to escape a massive pain. So we got to meet them in the pain. This is the biggest mismatch I see with successful entrepreneurs selling to audiences who aspire to be successful just like them. You know, the successful entrepreneur, their life is easy related to that issue that they're teaching about. And their audience related to that issue, their life is very hard. So we spend a lot of time in the darkness. You know, we help them get out of hell before we get them into heaven, right? But there has to be some heaven too. There has to be a reason to fight for today with the hopes that there's a better tomorrow. So most people do one or the other. They're all pot of gold at the end of the rainbow when they're mismatched with their audience who's suffering, or they stay in suffering. They take their headache and they turn it into a migraine and then they sell them a Tylenol, right? Like, we got to do both, because making the sell is only the beginning of the journey. If I make the sell and I don't help you as a customer, I'm doing myself no favors, because I'm not creating the capacity for you to want to do more business with me in the future. I'm actually designing it so you do less business with me in the future. Not only does commitment and consistency move through the purchase into the action phase, which increases your success stories, but this whole concept of if we just scare them into buying, we might get their money once, but we didn't empower them. We've actually created trauma. So we got to sell the hope that tomorrow will be better today. And then we have to anchor that down and build upon that in the actual product to see it through so we can make more money and serve more people in the future.
So that was Jason Fladline on creating hope and also making sure that we actually give value in our products so that we can have repeat customers. It is much easier to get people to continue to buy from you than it is to try to just create new customers. So it's not just about like manipulating people to buy this product from you. It's actually delivering on your promise in the webinar that you sell. That's going to create the flywheel effect. Okay. Now, another psychological thing that you need to realize about selling in general, about webinars in general, is that status sells. Status sells. People make decisions based on the desire to either increase their status or avoid losing it. Every decision that you make in your life, that anybody on this webinar makes in their life, is based on status. Who you date, what you buy, what courses you buy, all your decisions, what job you take is based on either increasing your status or losing your status. Okay, so you want to use this insight to shape your messaging and the structure of your webinars. You want to make sure that your audience sees your offer as a way to elevate their status, whether socially, professionally, or personally. So a couple ways that I've done this throughout the webinar is I talked to you guys about how webinars help me generate millions in sales and improve lives. Webinars help me become a top expert in my niche. Webinars help me shorten the sales cycle to go from cold to sold. Everybody wants to make millionaires. Everybody wants to be known as a top expert. And then I flipped it back, and now I want to teach you guys how to do the same thing. Okay? So let's hear Russell Brunson talk.
Okay, so related to new opportunities, why is status and leveraging status really important to do a good job with that?
Yeah, it's fascinating. In fact, I bet most listeners will argue with me on this, or they won't believe it's true for themselves. But I promise you it is. Everything we do or we don't do in life is because it all has to do with status. Like if you do something, it's either going to increase your status or it's going to decrease your status. So we do things because we hope it's going to increase our status, or we don't do things because we're feared that it's going to decrease our status. So for example, somebody sees a nice car, like I want to buy a Ferrari. And the reason why I want to buy the Ferrari is because if I buy this thing, it will increase my status. My people around me will think that I'm better. So like that's what drives us to want to buy something, right? If I'm going to buy a course from somebody, there's two weird things, right? If I buy something from you, I'm taking money out of my bank account and giving it to you. So what happens immediately is my status is decreased because I'm losing money. But I have a hope that by giving you this money, it's going to increase my status by the result you're giving me, right? And so they're always weighing like, if I give you this, it's going to decrease my status temporarily. But by doing so, I'll figure out this thing which will increase my status. Therefore, I'm willing to take that risk. So whenever I share this, people always laugh because they're like, well, I'm not that way. Like I don't do things based on my status. And I actually had this conversation with my wife when I was writing Expert Secrets. I had a whole chapter on status. And I asked her, I was reading this to her, and she's like, Russell, you don't understand. I don't look at it that same way. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, I would never buy a Ferrari. I would never do that. I'm like, why not? And she's like, if I had a Ferrari, she's like, my friends would make fun of me. They'd be like, oh, the mom's showing up at the pickup line, picking the kids in the Ferrari. And I was like, okay, like I kind of stopped and I said, so by you buying a Ferrari, for you, it would have actually been a decrease in status because your friends and people at the pickup line would have made fun of you, right? She's like, oh. I was like, yes, all the choices we're making is based on this weird thing of like, if I do this, is it going to increase my status or decrease my status? And so when I'm selling something or I'm making an offer to somebody, I'm always thinking about that. Like by them giving me money, it's going to decrease their status, but I have to help them see the vision of like, over time, this will actually increase their status if they buy this thing. And status could be, they're going to make more money. They're going to lose more weight, whatever that thing is they're trying to get, right? And if they believe that the increase in the status will offset the decrease by paying you, then they're more likely to buy the thing. Mm-hmm. So status is an interesting one that's hard for a lot of people to believe. It dictates your choices, but 100% it is. From everything, like think about like the people we date, the people we marry, the clothes we wear, like all these things have to do with how we perceive it's going to increase or decrease our status. Mm-hmm. It's kind of fascinating.
It is so fascinating.
Awesome. So I hope you guys learned something new about creating commitments and status. And we're going to move on to the second section of our webinar roadmap, which is education. So we just talked about the introduction. We just talked about psychology. And now we're going to talk about educating without overwhelm. Okay? So here's a really powerful quote from Craig Valentine. I'd rather give you 3 things you remember than 10 things you forget. Okay? Your goal is not to just overwhelm your audience with information. Your goal is to teach and deliver real value. So you want to establish credibility and trust by giving actionable insights rather than fluff. You want to deliver genuine, practical content that participants can apply immediately. You want to avoid overloading attendees with information and instead focus on what will provide the greatest impact to them. And you also want to niche down your webinar topics. So focus on one main aspect of your course or solution and go deep on it. So for example, in the concept of webinars, I'm really talking about primarily executing your live webinar. I'm not talking about the tech setup. I am going to talk about driving leads because I just want to make sure you guys know how to do that. But if I was selling a high ticket offer, I probably wouldn't do that. It would just be too much information on the webinar. So you want to niche down one main aspect. And a good rule of thumb is that you want to give away just 5% of what you teach in your course during your webinar. So for example, I have a LinkedIn masterclass that's a 2-day workshop. And I have about 10 modules a day for this workshop. And I just go over one module for the free webinar. Okay. And speaking of that one module on the webinar, when I have webinars, because like I said, people attend these webinars over and over again, I typically rotate 3 different topics. So one webinar might be on engagement strategies. One webinar might be on DMing and DM funnels. The other one might be on the algorithm. And I kind of rotate those topics. So I have 3 webinars that have very similar frameworks, but the teaching portion has a slightly different niche so that if people need to join more than one webinar before they convert, they get a slightly different experience and it's not the same repetitive webinar. For the content piece, you want to go deep for at least 45 minutes. Jason Fladline believes that people don't build trust until hour number 3 of your webinar. So having a 30-minute webinar is just really short. I usually go an hour and a half to 2 hours on my webinars. Jason says to go up to 3 hours. I find 3 hours is kind of overkill personally for me, but he just stays on and answers questions and just kind of handles any sort of objections and proactively brings up objections in the QA and just keeps the conversation going. And he feels the longer people stay on your webinar, the more likely they're going to convert. Okay. So let's talk about a case study. Phil Stringer is a new friend of mine, and he is excellent at webinars, but he wasn't always that way. So he's an up-and-coming AI efficiency coach, and he was invited last minute to conduct a virtual webinar for a large celebrity real estate mastermind because the host was sick. So the host called him up. He's a celebrity, this host. And he basically was like, hey, Phil, I just saw you at a real estate event and you crushed it. I'm sick as a dog. I've got 5,000 people who are going to be on this call today. Could you, or tomorrow, whenever it was 24 hours notice. Could you hop on this call and do your thing? So Phil at the time was not famous. He was not well known. He was recently chosen because he spoke at a real estate event and he made a good impression. He had a strong sales background. And so he ended up just studying and kind of doing a crash course on webinars, studying greats like Jason Fladline, similar strategies that we learned today. And in a day, he put together a real estate webinar. He took his sales presentation that he does for AI and he customized it for real estate. And he went on this call and he sold a course that he didn't even have yet. He just knew what he wanted to do for the course. He sold a course that didn't even exist yet. And he made over $267,000 in sales in a single webinar. That is amazing results. All right. So I asked Phil, what did you do? What was your approach? And he said he had a niche topic for a niche audience. He said he made the content specific to real estate agents, so it felt highly relevant. This wasn't just a general AI course. It was tailored to them, to their industry. It made them easier to see the tangible value. It was a webinar also that was specifically for real estate agents. So everything was highly relevant to his audience. He over-delivered on free value. He gave more actionable content for free than most people charge for. This set a high standard, making his attendees think, if the free stuff is this good, the paid content must be incredible. And then he connected this free content to his paid content. Everything was very cohesive. At the end of it, he didn't just sell a generic AI course, he sold an AI course that was for real estate agents. His free solutions that he shared were directly tied to a more in-depth material in his course. People saw the quality of what they were getting for free, so it felt natural for them to take the next step. So again, these people had no idea who he was. And in an hour or so, he was able to take them from cold to sold and made over $250,000 at once from his webinar. Okay. So this is an example of a testimonial that I'm giving you. I'm trying to show you guys and handle objections and change your identity by giving you a testimonial in my content. Again, a meta presentation, a webinar on webinars, right? So there's different types of testimonials that you can take people through and decide to put in your intro and your content throughout your webinar itself, okay? You want to reinforce transformation with testimonials. If Bill can do it, you can do it too, okay? So there's many different types of testimonials. There's character testimonials, somebody who talks about how good you are as a person and what you do, a celebrity of clout and influence. So this would be like if Russell came on and was like, Hala's amazing at webinar. She's my webinar protege, right? That didn't happen. Maybe it will happen someday. Big results testimonial. So somebody who has an exceptional, specific, tangible outcome from doing similar strategies that you're learning today. Initial results testimonial. Somebody who, as a result of seeing a webinar like the one you're doing, got an immediate result, even if it's a modest one. And an inspirational transformation testimonial. So somebody whose life who was dramatically impacted as a result from learning from you that transcended just the benefits related to the topic at hand. Okay? So these are all different types of testimonials that you can use in your content. So pop quiz, what kind of testimonial was Phil Stringer? Let me know in the chat. Was it A, a character testimonial, B, a big results testimonial, C, initial results testimonial, or D, an inspirational transformation testimonial? You guys are smart. Good job. Everybody got it right. Thank you, Eve. Yeah, big results testimonial. So shout out to Phil. Okay, so let's talk about other tips to keep it lively in your webinar. You want to keep it fun, guys. You don't want your webinar to feel like a boring lecture. I feel like I do a really good job of like making it feel energetic and fun. And that's why people like to come on the webinar, even the same webinar that I have over and over again. It's like a fun event for people to come to. So how do we keep it fun? Polls, quizzes, open-ended questions. You want people to get engaging in the chat. It's a two-way mid-funnel activity because I can talk to you, you can talk to me, right? Share stories. People love stories. Stories feel so fun. This is why movies are so fun, right? People love to listen to stories. It keeps things engaging. It makes people remember things more. So you want to infuse your whole presentation with stories, okay? You also want to pay attention to the chat. People want to know, is she reading? Is she live? Is she paying attention? Guys, I read almost every single comment. I'm pulling up the chat. You guys can't see that I'm pulling up the chat, but I'm paying attention to what you guys are saying and the feedback that I'm getting. All right. And then you want to answer questions. We haven't had a lot of questions yet. You don't want to interrupt the content when you're answering questions, but at the end of every section, you can kind of pause. If you have somebody like I have Kate in the chat that's helping me kind of like mine everything. She's answering questions that are really urgent, right? So you need a support person if you've got a lot of people on helping throughout. But then like she can consolidate like, hey, Hala, you've got like these 3 big questions that keep getting asked and I can pause and answer the questions. So be interactive, capture questions, answer them all at once. It's really distracting though if you like always like pause and answer questions throughout the content and it's distracting to everybody else. So I would like take a break, answer questions, okay? All right. So how have I made this webinar fun so far? like I mentioned, anybody who signs up to the pro plan gets the 30-day free trial. You get all these slides. So I'm going to have to move a little faster because we've got a lot more content to go through. And so there are universal emotions. The key thing that I want you guys to know about this slide is that when you're creating your webinar, what I want you to do is once you're done creating all the content, I want you to put it through some filters. And these are the filters that I want you to put it through. So fear, is anything that you say in your webinar creating fear? Sometimes I have webinars and they're like a flop. And then I think, like, why did it flop? Why didn't anybody buy? And I'm like, oh, I like scared everybody. I made it seem too hard. It was too much work. I overwhelmed them with too much information. They're like, Jesus, if this is what it takes, I'm out, you know? And so you don't want to scare people off. And that often is from putting too much information or just talking too much about the process that it's going to take. Okay. So anything that's going to scare them, you want to take out. Anything that's going to confuse them, you want to take out. So anything that just seems like you might want to go through it with other people. Like, was there anything confusing about this? How can I make this more clear? So confusion, a confused mind is never going to buy from you. A scared mind is never going to buy from you. The other thing is safety. So how can you create safety throughout the presentation? Hey, if you do this journey with me, this is your safest option. And then again, enthusiasm. So we're going to talk more about enthusiasm now. And I want you guys to think about your tone, your volume, your pace. And I recently talked to Yasser Khan, who gave me really great advice on this. So I'm just going to play the video and you guys can hear it from him.
I've had a change of heart in this. I used to think you have to talk louder to be more confident, right? But then I realized if you're always loud and just talking like this the entire time, eventually it gets really annoying. But if you're always quiet like this all the time, then you look timid. So the key is not just volume. The key is variety in volume. So you go up and down and up and down.
Yeah. And speed is another one where I think we need variety. Now, I have my own perspectives on speed. I'm a fast talker. I feel like people are just like awake when I'm talking, and I can have like an 8-hour session and keep everybody engaged the entire time. And I think a part of it is talking fast. But I do feel like when public speaking folks come on, they often say like, slow it down, you know?
Yeah.
So tell me, what do you think?
Listen, I have ADHD. I have a million thoughts running in my head and all of them want to come out at the same time. So I'm just like you. I want to talk fast.
Mm-hmm.
I was once invited to do a seminar on public speaking anxiety. And I've done this seminar a million times. So I show up with my 17 different things to do to overcome your public speaking anxiety. I present in front of 200 people and immediately people say, wow, Yasser, you covered so much information. That was absolutely amazing. One of the guys says, Yasser, I'm about to go next after you. That's exactly what I needed because I was so anxious in the moment. I said, amazing. So I went out, got some coffee, sat back in the room. He shows up on stage and Hala, I can see the notes shaking in his hand in the moment. So he slowly walks onto the lectern. He puts his notes there. He starts speaking, going through his slides, and he's stuttering. And then eventually he hits this word that he can't really pronounce properly. And he just puts the clicker down and walks off stage. I can't understand why. So afterwards, I see him in the parking lot and I say, hey, what happened? He said 3 words I'll never forget. I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember. And that's when I realized, what's the point of me talking fast, high energy, covering these 17 points when he couldn't remember it when he needed it most? That's when I learned to slow it down. So my coach has this great saying, Craig Valentine, he says, I'd rather give you 3 things you remember than 10 things you forget. I've really narrowed down the amount of material I share, but I also try to vary the pace a little bit as well when I talk.
Yeah. So same thing with volume. You also want to vary your pace. So what does talking slow do versus talking fast? Like, what does it portray when people are listening to you?
Yeah, talking fast builds momentum. Like, okay, we're going somewhere. Well, come along with me. I'm going. But then I want you to think about this for a second. Then you slow the pace down. And every time you want to make a point, this is one of the biggest challenges people have in storytelling. They skip over the most important part of the story because they're going so fast. So if you really want people to listen, slow down and you whisper. What happens when you slow down? What happens when you whisper? People immediately lean forward. If you look at any of my talks, you'll say I'm super high energy, and then I'll immediately drop the energy. And then people feel it in that moment.
So what did you guys learn there from Yasser? Tell me some of the things that you learned. So one of the things that I learned is that talking fast builds momentum and talking slow helps you emphasize your points. And everybody has, I heard people talking in the chat that everybody kind of has their natural talking pace. I talk really fast, right? I'm like really energetic. I talk really fast. But I have to tell myself, like, okay, let me slow down. Let me repeat this point because I want to make a point, right? Whispering draws near. Variety makes you not boring. It's not about always being fast, always being slow, always being loud, always being quiet, right? It's the variety that keeps people engaged. And again, when you're on a webinar, your goal is to keep people on as long as possible. And this will help you with everything, right? Again, being good at webinars will help you on your sales calls, will help you in any sort of public speaking, will help you even tell better stories at dinner, right? So there's just so many benefits to like getting better at this type of stuff. All right, let's move on.
I've had a change of heart in this.
Okay, so let's move on to the transition part. So remember when I had this little like road, we had introduction, content, transition. We're on the third step, okay? So basically, this is your transition to your offer. You don't want to go like straight to the sale. That seems like really inauthentic. You need to like warm people up, let them get ready for the sale, okay? So one of the things that you can do is a 60-second summary. So 60 minutes and 60 seconds. So you want a summary that reinforces the value given, reminding your audience of the unique insights they've gained and setting the stage for how much easier it will be to achieve the results with the full solution. So you give a 60-second summary. Here's the content that I just went over. Boom, here's the summary. Okay, so in this instance, I'd be like, okay, we talked about introductions and we talked about content. You've got to have a hero story, create your big promise. You want to shift identities. You want to solicit desire, right, with status. And then you don't want to overwhelm with content, whatever. I would do a 60-second summary. Then you want to do commitment invite questions. So you want to invite the audience to consider the offer. So to be non-salesy, you make your audience tell you that they're ready to hear your offer, okay? Throughout the whole presentation, you're sparking curiosity about your offer. You're creating a curiosity gap about what your offer is. That's going to be the solution that's going to help them go further from what they learned today. And then you want to paint a picture of transformation. So you want to imagine having all the tools and support you need to finally get the desired results. So you're basically going to tell them, imagine having all the tools and support you need to get that final result. That's what my offer is all about. So you want to paint a picture of transformation. So I'm going to go over some commitment questions, and you guys can literally use this in your next webinar. So you basically want to get them to start saying yes. You want to use the yes letter technique. You're trying to shift their identity. You're trying to get them to agree for you to actually go ahead and make the sale. You want to allow them to be in control. People make decisions and say yes when they feel like they're in control. So you're giving them the control here, okay? So a broad commitment question. Did you enjoy our time together on this webinar thus far? A specific commitment question. Would you like to spend more time together than just on this one webinar? Would you like to learn more from me? Okay. A big commitment question. If I had something that would take what we discussed today and kick it up to the next level, would you like to know about it? So you take these people on this commitment question journey so that you get permission to sell your offer. Okay. So now we're going to talk about making the sale, the close, stacking your offer. So what is stacking your offer? So once you get people on this journey, they're ready to hear your offer. You want to make this offer so irresistible that it's just so ridiculous for anybody to say no to you. Okay. So first of all, you've done this whole webinar where you've just established rapport, established credibility, you've given testimonials, you've transformed people's identities, you've provided so much value that now everyone has the feeling of this reciprocity factor, okay? The law of reciprocity is in play. People never want to feel like they owe somebody something. They always want to return the favor. So everybody on your webinar is going to have this imbalance because you've just provided so much value where they feel like they either need to buy from you or they need to support you in some way. Okay. So you want to stack the offer, make it seem as valuable as possible. So you start off by introducing your main product or service. What is the core thing that they're going to get? So for example, with my LinkedIn course, they're getting a 2-day workshop. Here's all the modules that we're going to go over. All right. We're not talking about price yet. We're just talking about here's the core thing that you're getting, the main thing that you're buying. Then you're going to break down each component. These are this is day 1, this is day 2. These are all the sections. We're going to have a workbook. You're going to be able to create voice guidelines. You will get all these SOPs related to this. There's going to be trainings within the video. It's live with me. And then I go over all the bonuses. You're going to get a reporting spreadsheet. You're going to get a Canva training. You're going to get, all these different bonuses that we have, a checklist, a copywriting checklist, and so on, a calculator, an engagement calculator. And I show all these different bonuses, dozens of bonuses. All right. The other thing that I'm doing is I'm reducing the risk associated with the course. I'm saying things like, this course is $2,000, but when we did a survey, all of my students on average rated it $13,000 value. Another thing that I'm saying is I've never had a refund once. I've had hundreds of students that have come through this course, and I have a full 30-day money back guarantee. I've never had a student ask for a refund. And I think that's a pretty good track record, right? So I'm trying to reduce the risk of buying from me by adding bonuses, and giving people the security to know that people have become influencers from my course, have learned so much from my course, and have never asked for a refund. One of the other things that you can do is start creating a tally of how much these offers are worth. So you could say, okay, this copywriting checklist, this is $100 value. This Canva training is a $300 value. And you can start to create a running value of how much all these services are. And it adds up to a lot, okay? And then you give a price reveal. After you've already talked about everything that you're offering, you give a significantly lower price. So all of this adds up to $13,000. But right now, I'm giving you 30% off for the next 24 hours where you can get my course for $12.99. Okay? So what are some stacking the offer tips? One thing that you can do is you can include elements that feel priceless. So how can you even give something that is completely something you can't put a price tag on? So for example, I have bi-weekly office hours for anybody who does my course, right? So it's an hour with me and everybody else and all your classmates where we do in office hours, right? So that's a priceless offering. Is there a VIP access, personalized coaching? What can you do that you can include in your offer that will feel priceless? The other thing you want to do is include special deals, limited time bonuses. How can you have urgency? How can you have scarcity? We've got this 30% off code for just 24 hours. I've capped the seats at just 50 seats. Okay. You can also offer a gift for those who purchase on the webinar. You want to do everything you can to close people on the webinar. That means keeping people as long as possible. That means adding gifts to those who purchase on the webinar. Once people leave your webinar, they are way less likely to convert. You can try to hit them up on email, but basically people are ready to make their decision. And if you haven't done a good enough job, they're going to leave that webinar and they might come back again for another chance to sell them on a webinar. But your goal is, how can I get as many conversions as possible on this webinar? Okay. I already talked about risk-free guarantee. And then in terms of pricing, the sweet spot for pricing on webinars is anywhere from $297 to $2,000. Now we're going to hear from Russell Brunson on how you can sell a higher ticket offer. It's just harder and there might be more steps in that. Okay.
They're also so fun. Like, I love creating my webinars, optimizing my webinars. What kind of things work well to sell on a webinar and what doesn't? Like, is there a certain price point where it doesn't work, or can you give any advice on that?
For sure. I think the reality is, like, I have a $10,000 offer I sell on the webinar, and it works. But it's harder. Like, the more expensive, the better you have to get, right? And so for most people, I think the sweet spot for webinars is like $297 up to like $2,000. It's kind of the sweet spot where a 90-minute presentation can get somebody, warm them up enough where they feel comfortable like parting with that much money. So that's kind of the sweet spot in the pricing. I've seen people sell for us, we sell a year worth of ClickFunnels on a webinar for like $1,000, and then they get it for free for a year or for 6 months, and after that it starts billing them. So you can sell memberships and continuity programs through webinars as well. It works really effectively. I just like, if I have someone's attention for 90 minutes, I'll usually, again, bundle it together so they're getting 5 or 6 months for free for higher price, then put people into it. But yeah, I think that's kind of the price point. When it gets above that, I'll still do webinars a lot of times, but the webinar will traditionally push then to a sales call or a discovery call. That way I still have the time to build the relationship with them, and I can push them there to do the higher transactions if we need to.
So in summary, if you guys have a higher ticket offer, you can sell it on a webinar. The better you get, the higher ticket offer your offer can be in the webinar. But you might need to spend additional time on a discovery call or something else like that to kind of get them to do the actual close. Okay. And I also really liked what he mentioned. If you have a software product, he does a whole webinar, and the offer is you get a year of the product with a discount if you buy on the webinar, which is just such a brilliant idea. So if you've got a business that's not a course, this is what I was saying, like, this is relevant for everyone. Because you can sell one-to-many on your webinar and just think of a strategy of, all right, what is my offer for this webinar? A year of agency services where you get 2 months free if you buy today, right? So you can get creative no matter what kind of business you have. And curious in the chat, what kind of business, like, what are you going to sell on your webinar? Let us know in the chat. Okay. So did you enjoy our time on this webinar so far? And for everybody who paid attention, what am I doing right now? Did you enjoy our time on this webinar so far? What am I doing right now? This is commitment questions. Yes. Who got it? That was, oh, you guys are going so fast. Kristen got it. If I had something that would take what we discussed today and kick it up to the next level, would you like to know about it? Oh, look, Phil is in the chat. What's up, Phil? He was our testimonial. All right, let's talk about stacking the offer with Teachable. So with Teachable, you can stack your offer. Teachable is an amazing platform. My LinkedIn Masterclass is no longer going to be live. I'm putting all of my courses on Teachable, and we're going to make a big announcement next month where it's going to be on demand in separate modules, and it's going to be all on Teachable. So Teachable lets you create online courses, so you can create them really quickly with no code and AI assistance. You can build it customized to your brand. They also offer a way for you to sell your digital downloads, also creating lead gen pages. So creating gated asset pages where you can get people's emails in exchange for these downloaded guides, which is really awesome. And if you guys take my other courses, you know that creating these lead gens are really important. So Teachable lets you create those pages. You can also add on, create bundles, upsells, and so on. You could do all your coaching on Teachable. So if you're a coach or a consultant, you can keep your coaching organized. There's a scheduler. You can track client progress. You can create curriculums for your coaching on Teachable. And they also have memberships. So I have a mastermind, for example. And so we're going to move everything onto Teachable. It will have exclusive member-only content, subscription tiers, free trials, monthly pricing. They have everything. So Teachable is awesome. If you want to stack your offer, they've got all the tools. So like I mentioned, they have this AI curriculum generator. They have an AI quiz generator. We're going to do a short demo that's going to show you all of this stuff. And if you guys can, I would really appreciate, we've got, just as a reminder, we have an entire last section of driving leads, which is just as valuable as everything that I did before this demo. So after this demo, I'm doing the last section. So this is not the end of the webinar. And Teachable sponsored this webinar for us. And so stay on, get the value. This was a really amazing webinar. And this is how we're going to thank Teachable. Okay. So advanced monetization features. They have subscriptions, bundles, upsells, order bumps, coupons, and promo codes. So everything that you need to create more sales with the same customer, Teachable enables you to do. So you can create upsells. So like once they finish a course, they get a solicit to buy the next segment of your course. In checkout, they get offer bumps. So you can try to solicit people to buy additional things at checkout. And then you can do promo codes. So you can do like, enter code Black Friday for 50% off. They let you do all that kind of stuff. So if you guys love the type of things that I do when I'm selling my courses, you can do all that kind of stuff on Teachable. And the best part is there's 0 transaction fee on the Pro plan. Okay. All right. So a lot of you guys did this already. If you didn't, here's your last chance to sign up to Teachable. Teachable.com/welcome/Hala. Select Pro, sign up for a new account. Then you arrive at the back end. And if you guys want the slides from today with all of my notes and our free tech SOP for setting up your webinars, you can sign up to the no risk 30-day free plan. You can get your refund within 30 days if you don't like Teachable. Hopefully you love it though. And then you get your free gifts. So you can just take a screenshot of you upgrading to the Pro plan, send it to Kate. Okay, I'm going to hop right into the demo. Like I mentioned, guys, if you guys upgrade to the Pro plan, you get a month for free, which is $159 value. If you guys do that, you get a PDF copy of today's webinar. We actually have extended notes. So Andrea on my team, who's my right hand when it comes to my brand, has literally went in and given all the extended like transcripts and information in the notes. So even what I talked about today, there's more value in the notes section to kind of go deeper on everything. And you guys get all of that as a free gift. Thanks, Andrea. Okay, so we're going to do a quick demo and then we're going to get right back into the content.
Hi all, in this video, I'll be doing a quick overview of the Teachable backend. So first things first, if you've already gone ahead and signed up for the free trial, what you'll do is create an account, you'll answer a few questions, and then you'll have created your first school. So this is what the back end of your school will look like. And once you're in here, you can see all the navigation options on the left-hand side. For today, we're going to focus on the bottom half in terms of creating the different types of products that Teachable offers integrations with. So for this example, we're going to go to courses and we can see a couple dummy courses that we've already created for this example. A really awesome feature of Teachable is their integration with AI. So I'm going to recreate this podcasting 101 course just to give you a sense of how cool their AI features are. So I've already created this example course title and the example course description. I'm going to click continue. We can skip things like thumbnails and pricings for now. We can come back to that later. And now this is where it gets awesome. So you can generate with AI a course outline and curriculum based on the description that you feed to Teachable. So I've already put in this description and it's going to use this description to create the course outline. You can also start from scratch or bulk upload up to your preference. But for this example, we're going to use AI. So we'll click finish. Now we're going to watch the magic happen. It's going to be actively generating content for this course based off of the title and description that I fed it with. So you can see the AI is actively working. They're putting content into each of these sections and modules. So we can see they've created different topics about, identifying your podcast audience, creating your unique value proposition, podcast equipment and software that you need, all the things that you would maybe need in a podcasting 101 course. It's creating this based off of AI. And so just for an example, it'll say that your content is ready. Just make sure that while this is a really cool feature, this should just be used as a starting point, right? Like you want to make sure when you go in here that you go in and add your own expertise, your own value, your own perspectives to make sure that you're providing the right amount of value for your audience. Another cool AI feature that Teachable has is this quiz option. So under quiz, you can actually use Teachable's AI to generate questions based off of the content you've already created in there. So just another cool feature to save you time and provide a little bit more interactivity with your students. Now, if we go back to the curriculum, the last thing I want to feature in here is the upsell feature. So it already generated a next steps feature. I want to add some content to this and click upsell. So I want to upsell to the Podcasting 201 course so that if someone finishes my one-on-one course and they want to learn more, there's an immediate opportunity for them to do so. So I can add the headline, develop your podcasting skills even further. You can add a description, button text, and this will automatically add the upsell here. Of course, I'd recommend going in and further personalizing this with a thumbnail, a better description, but it just goes to show you how automatic and integrated Teachable can be with your other offers. So super cool to see that. Now, finally, we'll go back to our courses and we'll head to bundles. So a bundle is a super cool offering that Teachable offers in terms of being able to bundle multiple coaching or course products to offer to your audience. So for example, if someone just wants to learn everything that you have out there in terms of podcasting, they don't want to be piecemeal, they want to just see everything A to Z, they could buy this podcast master bundle, which has both the podcasting 101 and 201 course in it. So you're able to bundle different courses, different products to best fit what your audience may want and need from you. So another interesting product to be able to integrate with your offerings and make sure that you're serving your audience in the best way possible. Now, again, if you haven't already, make sure you go and test out Teachable for yourself. We have a 30-day free trial. If you go to the link in the chat or head to teachable.com/welcome/Hala, you get the free 30-day offer. It's a pro. You can cancel within any time. You'll get 30 days free. If you do so, you will be able to get an extended version of today's slides and the notes just by sending over some information that Hala will go over in the next slide.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Kate, for putting together that awesome demo. Kate is my tech. Hi
all. In this video, I'll be doing a quick overview of.
Sorry, clearly, Kate is my tech. I don't know how to work this presentation. Okay, so I am really excited to get back into the contents. And just one last reminder, if you guys sign up for the bonus, I want you guys to get the free gift. So take a screenshot, send it to academy@yapmedia.com. Kate will put that in the chat. You get the free extended version with today's webinar notes. You get the free tech SOP, and there's no strings attached. And now we're going to talk about driving leads to your webinar. All right. So when you're thinking about how to track your webinar success, you actually want to track some metrics, okay? So that you can get better and better and better. So what are the things that we're tracking at Yap Media? We're tracking total registrants. We're tracking webinar attendees. We're tracking attendance rate, webinar length, webinar conversions, post-webinar conversions. So we actually have a spreadsheet that tracks every single webinar we did and the results that we got. So how many people registered, meaning how many emails we got, how many people actually attended, what's the attendance rate? Typically, it's 30 to 50%. The more that we can get people to actually attend the webinars, the better. And so you want to look like, okay, like only 10% of the people attended my webinar. For example, when I did that paid ad strategy, we had both low people sign up and even lower people attended. 50% of my audience on social media would attend the webinars, but only 10% from paid traffic attended the webinars because they didn't remember. They forgot who I was. They're like, who's Hala? What did I sign up for? So you want to remind people for your webinars and you want to keep driving up that attendance rate. And that's really, really important. Okay. Now, if a lot of people signed up and a lot of people didn't attend, you have an opportunity to do another webinar. So for example, I had a decent attendance rate today, wasn't the best attendance rate. So now I have to go back to my team. Like we had 1,000 signups. We might need to do another webinar and get more people on this webinar. I spent a lot of time on it and people already registered, showed their interest. Maybe we should do it at night. Maybe we should try something different and get people to actually come to this webinar. Okay. Because again, people are more likely to buy when they're warmed up on your webinar. So you might want to have a second webinar if you had a lot of signups, but people didn't show up. Okay. You want to also look at your webinar length. Trial and error. All right. If I did 2 hours, what was the conversion? If I did 3 hours, what was the conversion? If I shortened it up, if I shortened up the education piece, if I increased the education piece, you want to keep iterating and find like, what is your best formula for you and your audience and what you sell? Okay. Webinar conversions, it's anywhere from 5 to 10% is a good webinar conversion. So based on your attendees, if you're getting 5 to 10% conversions, anything higher than that is amazing. Anything lower than that, you're going to have to try to work on it. Okay. And I teach this in another webinar. We don't have time to talk about it today, but I teach something called bottoms up forecasting. All right. What does bottoms up forecasting mean? Because everything is so standard in terms of like, typically you're getting a 50% attendance rate or 30 to 50% attendance rate. You're getting a 5 to 8% conversion rate on your webinars if they're decent. You can try to figure out like, okay, what are the ways that I'm driving people to this webinar? So for example, I drive everybody from social posts and DMs. And then I know the click rate of my DMs. And so I can basically work backwards and see, okay, if I send 1,000 DMs, we get 500 people to sign up, 250 show up, 5% of them convert, I make X amount of money. So if I take a bottoms up approach, I can say, all right, I want to double the amount of money. We need to send 2,000 DMs. And then I get the results that I want. Okay. So you can kind of work backwards on the way that you solicit your webinars and then just do more of the actions that actually bring in the most leads. And so you want to evaluate everything that you're doing in your funnel. Okay. So webinar funnels, Miss Excel, who's a huge TikTok star, Kat Norton, she blew up over COVID. And she's a TikTok influencer who monetizes her Excel tip videos with webinar funnels that lead to a course. And when Kat first started on TikTok, she had no idea how to monetize her following. And although her videos would be shown to new users on a daily basis, they were not long enough to build substantial trust. By age 29, Kat Norton, Miss Excel, built an online course business that generated over $2 million annually. And Kat came on my podcast, and when I asked her what was the number one driver of her course sales, I thought she was going to tell me TikTok. But she told me it was webinars. And she hosts monthly webinars where she teaches on a specific topic for 45 minutes, and she gives her audience a taste of her excellent teaching capabilities. She then provides her audience with an irresistible offer that includes a massive discount and a gift with purchase. So let's hear it from her of how she markets her webinar. She had some of the most innovative strategies that I've ever heard somebody doing for a webinar. And I used a lot of her strategies for my presentation. And again, she's new to the game and she's a webinar master herself. And we're going to learn from her now. So like we talked about, this is an entrepreneurship podcast. A lot of people have their own courses and you've done a phenomenal job promoting, creating courses, selling your courses. So let's walk through some of your strategy there. Can you talk to us about how you promote your courses today? What are the things that you're doing to drive people to your platform to buy your courses?
Yeah, so our biggest revenue driver is webinars. So I host typically every month or every couple months live sessions where I, for 45 minutes, am teaching a full-blown Excel class. Like we're either going into data cleaning, pivot tables, lookup functions. I have a little intro, and then I go in and I teach a full-blown class because I want them to get a taste of what I can do and how I can actually break these concepts down. And on the other side of that, people are like, oh my gosh, what? I just learned all these things. And then we give them an incredible deal to keep learning with us and a massive discount, a gift with purchases. And really from there, we do the webinar and then we have a close down sequence that goes through, and we also get a lot of sales on the back end. And another huge driver of our webinars has been our affiliate program. So we came up with an affiliate program where we do a 50-50 split, meaning if someone brings in a lead to us, whether, we have like Morning Brew, we work with some of the huge Excel creators where they get their own like events. And then we have tons of people, if they're smaller creators, going into our webinars where if you send us that lead and they make a sale, you get 50% of the revenue. So that's something where we have creators making, $10,000, $15,000 a month to up to like $70,000 a month with us in commissions. So it's been like a win-win.
Yeah, I love that strategy of affiliates. That's one that I've never heard of before, specifically driving people to your webinar.
Yeah.
And then if it converts, they get a portion of the sale. So I kind of want to distill some of the things that you had mentioned. Webinars are really important to me. I use it to sell my LinkedIn courses. I'm actually putting out a webinar about using webinars to launch info products or sell info products, sponsored by Teachable, in about a month. And so I'd love to get some of your perspective about this topic specifically. So first of all, you mentioned that you retarget folks after the webinar is over. You said after the webinar is over, there's also sales that are happening afterwards.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't realize that when people are signing up to a Zoom webinar, you get to collect emails. So one of my favorite things about webinars and Zoom webinars is the fact that people have to give you their email, and it really helps to accelerate and grow your email list. And then you can retarget those people on email afterwards. But talk to us about your retargeting strategy after the webinar is over. What happens?
Yeah. So our full process is on the front end. We're getting the name, the email, and sometimes we have an optional for phone number. So we also have a text campaign that's going out too. We use those more so on the show up side. So on the front end, you're getting a 5-email drip for a show up sequence. You have extra tickets, invite other people. And then we also do right before the webinar, you get a little text if you signed up with your number, hey, reminder, it's on there. We also integrate with Ad Event to be able to give them little calendar links, and they can hit a button and boom, the event's on their Google Calendar, their Outlook calendar, and whatnot. From there, after the webinar, once we hang up, we have all the email sequences going out. So we have, things like people get gifts for attending live. So we have those going out. We have people who get gift with purchases from their purchases. And then we also have our traditional close down sequence, which we do a 6-email sequence. And it goes through and gives them, the discount code again, the replay link. And then throughout those emails, we're also just integrating, different testimonials and things that'll go and work through to the base with the sale. And then we have a last call on the bottom there too.
So what did she say here? She talked about an affiliate program where she gets people 50% of the revenue if they can bring a lead to a webinar. When you're selling a course, it's just all profit, right? You're really creating a price out of the sky. What you determine is the value. It's all profit. So if you do, if you decide that okay, one lead is worth $500, you could just pay that to your affiliates, whatever you decide that lead is worth. Like I mentioned, I did a paid ad strategy, and it was one lead was a couple $1,000s to get because it was failed, So then you realize, okay, if I can get people to bring people by word of mouth, that's a lot cheaper than trying to test a paid ad strategy. And it's just a good way to go about it, right? So an influencer affiliate program, you basically have people spreading your stuff via word of mouth because they have an incentive. The bigger you make that incentive, the more likely they're actually going to do the work to try to bring people to the webinar, especially if they were your former student and they know that it's something valuable. They're not going to feel like a sleazy salesperson because they know that they're going to help people if they actually join and attend, okay? So she actually made me rethink. I have an affiliate program with my course where I gave people $250. That's just I felt like that was a good amount. But then she gives 50%. And I'm like, wow, I wonder if I had done that strategy, how many more signups I would have gotten if I was just, more generous with the commission for my affiliate program. Okay. She does a 5-email show up sequence. She does a fun incentive bring a friend. She solicits a free gift throughout her sequence so people know if they join the webinar live, they get a free gift. If they buy live, they get a free gift. And then here's the other thing that Zoom does that I found out from Kat, because I didn't know, is that when people sign up for your webinar, they can put their email and their phone number, okay? And then you can actually send SMS text reminders. And SMS text is now available on most email platforms. So if you have MailChimp, you can send email reminders and you can send SMS text reminders just right on MailChimp. Okay. So really great strategy. Again, you want to drive up attendance rate. That's a really big part of doing well in your webinars. All right. So gifts with purchase live on a webinar. This is something we tried new today. I think it worked really well. I feel like it probably incentivized, for those of you who've been to my webinars before, did getting the slides with all the notes incentivize you guys to like sign up to the demo, sign up to Pro Plan, let me know in the chat. And then you want to retarget people after the webinar. So much of the magic actually happens post-webinar. All right. So you get people's emails, they're warmed up to you, and then you want to keep providing value. So you might send the replay of your webinar and get people to watch on demand. So far less people are going to watch on demand than your actual live webinar. One of the strategies that we do is like a last minute, like, hey, I'm going to hop on at 7:00. And anybody who missed it, if you want to join this webinar, we usually get literally the same amount of attendees who are like, oh man, I missed it. I can't believe I missed it. And then they're more likely to show up the next time. So I got 1,000 signups for this webinar. I didn't have as good as an attendance rate as I thought. I had like 350 people. I was expecting 500 people. I'll get the final results because people are in and out. So I never really know. So like it might have been closer to 500, but I don't know yet. So basically I will try to get the other 500 people to now show up to another webinar. I'm just going to do a last minute, I already decided it based on how many people showed up. I'm going to do another webinar for anybody who didn't show up. And I bet you a lot of people will show up again and even be more likely to convert because they're like, oh, I want to Hala Talks fast. I'm going to, like we talked about, I'm going to want to come on this webinar again, right? So you want to get people to come up to this webinar. Throughout your sequence, you're giving special discounts. You might do a customer testimonial. So maybe I'll turn the Kat Norton case study into an email. Maybe I'll take the Phil Stringer case study, turn it into an email, get people to realize like these people were where they are. This is relatable. You can do it too, right? Address common objections throughout your messaging. Talk about your big promise throughout your messaging. Talk about your hero story. So basically, you're taking what's in your webinar that's not the educational content, and you're creating a curiosity gap in your email. Okay. So what is a curiosity gap? This is something that you use in videos and social in your webinar. A curiosity gap is basically giving people just enough information to make them curious to learn more without satisfying, and you're just teasing them. And so you're just opening up curiosity gaps throughout your email, throughout your webinar, so that you get people to take an action. Stay on the webinar to learn more. Register for the webinar to learn more. Click to learn more, right? So you open up these curiosity loops, curiosity gaps to get people curious and willing to stay on, learn more, okay?
So like we talked about, this is an entrepreneurship podcast.
Sorry, that's the only downfall of video. It's like very finicky. Okay. So marketing with Teachable. So Teachable has all these amazing things to stack your offer. They also have all these amazing things to market your offer. So with Teachable, you can create a custom branded site. So you can use all of your branding. They've got, you can just create it in no minutes. There's no coding required. So you can create a site. You can create those lead magnet pages that I always talk about. So if you guys have no idea how to create a lead magnet page, signing up to Teachable just for that in itself will pay for itself and get you emails and things like that. So you build an audience by offering free content. So creating digital downloads, checklists, quizzes. Teachable has an AI quiz generator, and then you can create a lead magnet page with no code and drive people from social media and email and things like that to your lead magnet page to get your free download. And then you can upsell them to your course and whatever. And Teachable lets you do that whole flow. Okay. Affiliate programs. Teachable helps you screen and onboard affiliates, pay commissions, handle commission tax reporting. So your whole affiliate program can just be built out on Teachable, whether you're a coach, whether you have a course. Okay. Abandoned carts. So basically, if somebody is about to make a purchase, you'll get a notification if people made it to the cart phase, and then you can target them with specific emails with language about like, you know, objection handling and things like that to try to get them to make a purchase. And then they also have integrations with MailChimp, with ConvertKit. I saw somebody had a question about ClickFunnels. You can go in and check all their integrations and see what they integrate with. But for sure, you could do like Excel downloads, uploads, and things like that. Okay, so quick demo about the marketing piece for Teachable.
In this video, I'll be walking through some of the extra features that Teachable offers that really make the Teachable experience the best one possible. So first off, I just want to touch on the ability to customize your Teachable sites. So not only can you customize the logo, branding, the thumbnail that you have, you can go a step further, and Teachable actually offers you several different fonts that you can choose from, as well as preset color palettes. But not only just presets, they actually allow you to select the exact colors you want for the different aspects of the Teachable page. So you can see here, we've added our Yap navy blue and our Yap pink to our site to make it feel that it is truly a branded experience when you go to the course pages. Next thing I want to quickly touch on in terms of the course pages and the courses themselves are once your courses are up and running, you have the ability to actually build and have your affiliate program within Teachable's backend. So under the users tab, you can go to affiliates. They'll ask you a couple questions. It takes about 15 seconds to set up. And then in here, you can see your affiliates, sales by affiliates, earnings, the affiliate resources you can add in terms of the URLs that you have and the links that you have available to them. And then the settings if you would like to change any of them as your course goes on in time. So again, really cool that Teachable has all of these aspects under their one umbrella to be able to build your course in truly a comprehensive way. The next thing I want to talk about in terms of integrations and having everything under one umbrella is Teachable's App Hub. So under settings, you're able to go to the App Hub and you can see how many softwares and apps Teachable actually has an integration with. So you can work with Zoom and install Zoom and work with them with Teachable. You can have integrations with Calendly, with Google Analytics, with MailChimp, with TikTok, with Zapier, all of these different softwares, especially with your email service providers, to make sure that everything that's happening on Teachable and all the data collection and management is seamlessly integrated with your ESPs or whatever other data platforms that you are using. And then the final little extra feature that we love at Yap that might be interesting to you all is under the digital download section of products, you can have low ticket or free offerings here, like ebooks, workbooks, guides, to really add value to your audience first before they may purchase a course. So you can see here, we have our LinkedIn cheat sheet. And what you can do is on the top right, you can create a digital download and either share a downloadable file or just deliver content through a specific link. And so it'll ask you and go through a couple steps. And then you'll have these either free or low ticket downloads that you're able to share for free or put a price on that will get people into your funnel. And then later down the line, you can upsell them to courses, coaching, other products as you see fit. So just as a reminder, we love all these extra features. If you're interested in trying the Pro Plan for 30 days, head to the link in the chat. We would love to see you all using Teachable like we do.
Awesome. And Kate, if you could just drop the link for everybody to sign up as one last thing. And I'm going to stay on for hold on, how do I get out of this? I'm going to stay on for...
In this video, I'll be walking...
Oh, okay. Hold on. I need to just wrap some content up. So when it comes to the pre-drip webinar, like we mentioned, anybody who signs up for the Pro Plan takes a screenshot, you get the download, you get her 5 email drip campaign. So this is everything that Kat does to get people to show up. All right. We also are giving you our Yap playbook for post-webinar retargeting. So essentially, what we do at Yap for our courses to get people to convert to the courses after the webinar. Right? Because it's typically we get, I would say, Kate, you could correct me if I'm wrong. We basically get the same amount of signups in the webinar and post-webinar with our stuff. I don't know if our stuff is different than most people, but we'll get the same amount of people signing up after the webinar, but it takes more time. It's like we get all at once signups and then we get people trickling in until the course goes live. We have a live course. Okay. So you have all of our webinar drip series for Yap Media as part of this free gift. Okay. And then we are also including, this is linked in the presentation, a tech setup SOP. So Kate, do you want to just tell them what's in the tech setup SOP?
Yes, you will get access to everything that we do from before the webinar to after the webinar to make sure that the sign up process and registration process is all cohesively linked together with your email provider, with Google Calendar to maximize the rate of show up for your attendees. And just making sure that if you're newer to hosting webinars and putting on these sorts of events, that it is as simple and easy for you to execute as possible.
Yes. So you guys get the tech setup SOP as an additional gift to all you guys. So this is the SOP. And like we mentioned, if you just sign up to the pro plan, take a screenshot of your confirmation and email, send it to academy@yapmedia, share it in the chat, you'll get the bonuses. So our team after this webinar is going to be responding back to the emails and sending everybody the PDFs. There's extended notes in this. You get all the slides. We're going to put out the recording in a few days. So if you want to watch it again, you get to do that. Okay. And I'll stay on now and do some Q&A. So I have about 7-ish minutes. I'll stay on an extra 5, 10, 15 minutes of Q&A. If you guys have a question, raise your hand. And Kate has a hard stop at 1:15. So that's our hard stop. And if you guys have questions, raise your hand. I'm happy to answer them. Don't be shy. Well, how did you guys like this webinar? If you don't have questions. Okay, there we go. All right. So let's start with Sean. All right, Sean. Hello.
Hello, Hala. How are you? Once again, another great webinar. I've always been a fan of you. So, as I joined LinkedIn, my question is, and I hope this makes sense, and I'm going to try to be as concise as possible. So, I already have a product, a framework, a high ticket offer, whatever have you, that I before this webinar have been prepping for the rollout. And I wanted, some of what I've been trying to do is some things I learned from you and I picked up from my own experience is just, I definitely don't know as much as you do about branding, but one thing I do know is you always want to make your brand and experience much bigger than it might be at the current time. So so let me get to the question. So my question is, now I've seen this webinar, I'm starting to rethink of what my original strategy was. And my original strategy was to send out this demo presentation, not a webinar, like a 15, 20-minute demo presentation with like a Google form sign up that would, after they witness the demo presentation, like, hey, if you're interested in doing business of, buying momentum, that's the name of my product, please sign and then let's connect. So my question is, do you think I should proceed with that strategy, or would having a webinar about momentum be the better way to go about it before the demo presentation? Or can I still proceed the way I plan to and then have a webinar behind it?
Yeah. What is the price of your product? And is it like a software? Like, what does your product do? Is it agency services? Like, what is your product and what is the price?
So the price is $5,995, and it's a framework. Momentum is a framework that demonstrates to organization how to be mindful of their people's mental health and trauma for the purpose of improving communications, productivity, performance, retention, and then profit margin or funding if it's a nonprofit. And then also when it comes to technology, what it does is, because a lot of organizations already have mental health apps and platforms, but by the data, by the numbers, and by my research, about half of employees still say that they're still suffering from mental health problems and trauma. And a lot of their, bosses, so to speak, think that the environment or the culture, the organization is a lot more welcoming or a lot more mental health proof or trauma proof, however you want to put it, whatever the wording is. So another thing that momentum does, that my framework does, instead of just like, one size fits all, either an app or a software platform, it also shows like, hey, this is what the appropriate software or platform would be for your particular organization. Because what works for one organization is probably not going to work. Every organization is different.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope I answered your question.
You did. It's really helpful. So like I have a couple ideas and I feel like you need to do you're going to have multiple sales strategies. So I feel like on your website, and anybody who's like sort of ready to buy or has done their own research, I would definitely include an option to kind of get different demos based on their use case so that they can do it self-service, right? So your original idea, I think, is good for anybody who's already warmed up. You've been talking about it on social. They don't need a webinar, right? You always want to have an option for people who are already warm to go down your funnel, right?
Right.
But you can have a proactive approach because seems like there's a lot of information and it's not that high ticket, or even employees could attend your webinar and kind of advocate to roll it out to their companies and things like that. But I do think that there's education that needs to be done. Like, why do people need this? Why do companies need this offering, right? And so creating a webinar allows you to build the case of why people need this and why they should care, and kind of tease out your framework and create a curiosity gap without giving away the whole framework, right?
Right.
And so I do think a webinar could be really powerful for you. What you're going to have to experiment with is like, who would attend this webinar? Who are my target titles? Who buys from me? How am I going to find these people? How am I going to pull them into this webinar and get them all there in one place? And if it's not very broad, right? So if it's not so broad, it might be difficult to get people in one place at one time for a webinar. You're going to have to experiment with that. And if you find that it's too difficult to do one-to-many because it's not enough leads to get everybody in one place where it makes sense, then you want to do a webinar framework, but do a discovery call where you're basically taking leads and bringing them through the webinar that you would be doing for
Right.
one-to-many with less education. It has to be a 30-minute version of that on a discovery call. Right. And so you need to just figure out, can I actually get, and what is it worth? Like, if you get 20 people to attend a webinar, is that good? You might not need, 500 people on the webinar. It might be 10 good leads, and that might be an even better experience. But I would experiment with it. Expecting people to just convert off a demo without being warm at all is going to be a tough sell.
Right.
So that can be, yeah.
Oh, let me let you finish. I'm so sorry.
No, I think I'm good. That was the advice that I had for you.
All right, because I don't want to hog the mic. I just, as a follow up to that, I just want to give you a little insight to my thinking. The original reason why I thought that was good enough is because it's such a big emphasis on that. It's not like I'm offering something niche, but within a market that like is it's already what you know what I mean. It's already widespread and well known. That's it. But I definitely appreciate all your advice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, 100%. Good luck with it. I hope that you do an amazing job with it. We'll take our last question from Paris.
Hey, Hala, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, I need to thank you. First of all, to start off, this was so good. But my question for you is, I am going to be launching a offer to help moms who have daughters who are living with bipolar disorder. And that's because I was diagnosed 10 years ago, and my story is very much entwined with the struggles of that, but what we can do to step out of that darkness to own our lives and not let that keep us stuck. So my question for you is, I'm in the process right now of finalizing the outline for my course, what I want to include with this. I want to know if it would be the best first step to start off before launching that offer. I think it would make more sense to go with a webinar first. Like you said, you broke down, I took so many notes. My notebook is like dead because it's so many notes. So good. but I wrote down that I think I want to focus on one or two of the things I'm going to focus on in the course. So I just gave a webinar yesterday. I was asked to speak by this foundation about self-stigma. So I talked about dismantling the roots that keep self-stigma flourishing. So do you think that I already have it? It's literally done. It's recorded. I literally got the recording yesterday. I did it yesterday. So I'm thinking, should I just use that and re-record that and release that before launching my course? Or what do you think would be the best approach for that?
Yeah, I would. Is your plan to have like an on-demand course on Teachable or something like this?
Yes. Yes. I think that, so I'm not sure, but I think that would be the best. It sounds like the best way to do it to me.
Mm-hmm. So I would create the course first before you create your webinar, just because you'll want people to buy on the webinar.
Okay.
And I would take the content that you already made in your webinar and thought through to use as promotional material to invite people to your webinar.
Okay.
And then you can use that content for your webinar. So that way you have your offer in place so that people can buy right on the webinar. If you were doing like a live workshop in 2 months, people could buy that now and then wait for the live course.
Okay.
You wouldn't necessarily need to do, you wouldn't necessarily need to have your course first. But if you want people to buy, you need to have an offer.
Okay.
So that means you should work on your course, and then some of the content that you use for your presentation, you can use in your social posts to try to like get momentum, get people to register. You can get people, your offer now is registering for this webinar. That's something you can start right away. You don't need anything prepared. You can work on it on the journey. Your offer now is getting people to sign up to the webinar.
Okay.
And then in the meanwhile, you're going to build your course so that the course is ready by the time the webinar is live, so that people can buy the course on the webinar.
Okay. I think my issue I might run into with that is that's done, but I think I have a tendency to overcomplicate things. I really make things way more complicated than they need to be. So should I so I'm going to do that webinar. That's already done. That's perfect. But I'm going to finish. I think my issue is I just need to literally lock myself in a room and not talk to anyone and finish this course. That's why I actually am off social media. But I think from your perspective, do you think that makes sense to have people register for a webinar where it is about how to dismantle the roots of self-stigma? And then I feel like it doesn't really make sense to go into the offer of, okay, I want to work with you. If you are a mom and you have a daughter who's living with bipolar, I will help give you the education so you understand what is bipolar disorder. How can I support myself and then be able to show up to support my daughter in a way that doesn't fracture the relationship? Do you think that makes sense, or should I do something?
Your education needs to connect directly to the offer.
Okay.
So you actually want to think about like, how does you might want to reframe it to be like, a bipolar for moms webinar, because otherwise it's not going to connect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you really want to connect. And then the other thing I would say is that you might want to broaden it out a little bit. Like, it's really specific. You got to be a mom. You got to have a daughter. You got to have bipolar. Like, can you broaden it out a little bit so you can get some more leads? Because that's really, really specific. And it's going to be like finding a needle on a haystack, right? Yeah.
So I agree with that. The reason I did it so specific is because I used to do coaching and I hated coaching. And it was just for anyone with bipolar. And I did it. I was really good at it, but I hated coaching. So I said, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to be able, and I wanted to work with the reason I picked that is because of my mom. It's because my issues with my mom, that has been the most damaging thing in my entire life and probably still is. So I wanted to help people with that because I know the knowledge on it. So maybe I'll listen to you. You tell me what to do. I'll listen to you.
Well, if you feel passionate about women and it's just women with bipolar, not necessarily moms, maybe it's neurodiversity with moms, and it's not just bipolar. You could talk about anxiety. You could talk about ADHD. Like, it's like, how can you bring in more leads? Or you got to get really good at finding moms with bipolar disorder. Like, where do they hang out? What do they sign up to? How can you find them? But the more that you like, niching is good, especially in the beginning of your journey. Niching is the best way to get started. But when you go too niche, you're just closing out the opportunity.
Okay.
So I would just think about how can you like just broaden it out a bit so that there's just more people who would be interested in what you're selling.
So I think I already have that because I've had my podcast for 5 years. It's a top 1%, 130 countries people listen. So I already have a massive audience, everyone around people who live with bipolar, they work in the field. And what I want to do is it's not moms with bipolar, it's moms who have a daughter who has a diagnosis. So I'm helping because I'm the daughter. I'm the daughter with a diagnosis, and my mom had no education, was not there for me at all, still is not. So I want to help people through that of how do you show up for yourself, regardless of whether or not you have that support in place, because you can cultivate that within yourself. And you can reach out to me, guys. My LinkedIn. Oh, sorry, my LinkedIn. I've been putting in the chat, so that's all my stuff on there. But Hala, this has been. I mean, what do you think? Do you think? Because I don't want to do what you said, where you said to do ADHD and all that, because I know bipolar. I live with bipolar. I feel like I can only speak to what I've experienced in this lifetime. So I don't feel like I'm an authority or a voice on that stuff. I understand it very intimately because I have a lot of people I know. But I think what I know super, super, super well is how to not let this destroy you to where you become suicidal. And I've had a lot of that. So I think, I don't know. I think you're right. So I think you're saying,
I have an idea. Maybe it's bipolar is the core, but maybe it's anybody who has anybody they love in their life with bipolar. Like maybe daughters, maybe it can be sons, your husband, your what, like just anyone who wants to deal with, like, who wants to understand how to deal with somebody that they love that has bipolar and how to deal with it in the best way.
I love that. No, that breaks everything down, because I feel like you're saying, that's not too niche. Because I think moms with a daughter with bipolar is like, that's cutting things too down. But I think you're saying if the person has bipolar, this course is for anyone who loves somebody who has that diagnosis, so they can get the education, understand, take care of themselves. That makes sense. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Totally what I'm saying. So I feel like that's going to broaden it up. And then your hero story is the example of you and your mom.
Okay. I think, I think the hero story might just be me, because we're not, she's still not there. So I think what I'll do is I'll use myself as the hero story to show how I have forgiven her and extended forgiveness and grace to her, that she did not have the tools that she needed to raise me in the way that I deserve to be raised. So I think that makes sense, but I don't want to be, because I'm very aggressive. I feel like I come across as very, very aggressive. And I think I'm working on not being, I don't know, but I think that makes sense. So I appreciate you. You are absolutely incredible. You're a fucking shark. Like, you are amazing. I'm so glad you messaged me on LinkedIn, because if you had not messaged me on LinkedIn, I would not be on this webinar right now, and I would not be having as much clarity as I do right now. So you are just amazing. I'm so grateful for you and all that you do. And I will go ahead and pass it on over for someone else, because I don't want to hog up the entire microphone the whole time.
Thank you, Paris. I wish you the best of luck. I'm really excited for your idea. I appreciate everybody who joined this webinar. I had so much fun. It was the first time I ever did it. So I hope that you guys found a lot of value from it. I hope you guys learned something from it. I'm excited to give away the material so you guys can study it on your own. I hope you guys follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, if you're not already. Check out Young and Profiting Podcast. Everything that I know in life is from my podcast. That's how I learn. So if you like this kind of stuff, you'll love the podcast. Shout out to Teachable again for making this happen. The reason why I was able to do this for free and spend all this time on it was because Teachable sponsored us. So support Teachable. When you think about a course platform that you want to join, just remember that Teachable is really invested in their creators. They do stuff like this. And just thank you so much. I hope everybody has a great rest of their day. Had such a fun time with everybody today. Thank you, everybody. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Until next time. Bye, guys.